Hey Sting, how's it going, buddy? Welcome to the WWE. It only took you 30 fucking years to get here, but it was a pretty big day for wrestling fans to finally see Sting's face on a WWE program. I, for one, did not bat an eye at the tweet that Sting sent out a few days ago about 7/14/14. I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. We had all heard the rumors about the WWE video game. We knew they were filming the commercial. There was the story that broke about WWE looking for Sting lookalikes, things like that. So we all knew WWE was going to be working with Sting in the future. And I didn't think for a second, I never once for one single solitary second thought that Sting was going to actually appear on Monday Night Raw. If you ask me, the go-home Raw to what could be the shittiest pay-per-view of the year is not an appropriate day for Sting to debut in the WWE after, almost 3 decades of waiting. To me, this was just a little teaser, just like Sting's interview on the WWE Network when the Ultimate Warrior died, saying, okay, Sting's here, we're working things out, we're probably going to do something Hall of Fame related and all of that next year, possibly, maybe a match. And I think it was more of just a way to plant the seed in the fan's head that says, yes, the rumors are true. We will be working with Sting in the future. Here he is. He's in a commercial now. Everybody can jack off to it and be happy. And I, for one, I am happy. I've been pretty vocal about Sting in the last couple of years, the Sting rumors, saying, as much as I would love to see Sting under a WWE umbrella, we've kind of waited too long now. And Sting's 52, 53 years old, something like that. There's not much he can really contribute. And I even had a little interesting idea about Sting that I'm going to share with you in just a little bit. As far as what you're going to hear in this commentary, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Sting, briefly touch on what we saw on Raw, and then we'll look at the card for Battleground, and maybe I'll even throw some predictions out there, because this pay-per-view to me is completely meaningless, and I was exactly right. If you heard my commentary the night after Money in the Bank, I said that we're probably in for about 3 or 4 really shitty weeks of main events on Monday Night Raw, and that's exactly what happened. They just took the Fatal 4-Way participants and included them in different variations of matches with each other for the last month, and I think 3 of the last Raw main events have ended in a DQ or schmaz or something. So I think the undercard is going to have to be what builds Battleground. But we'll talk about all of that in a minute. As far as Raw goes, I would have came up here and done a commentary right after Raw, but there was the rumors that Seth Rollins had gotten injured in the main event. So I wanted to sleep through the night, wake up, and see if any news broke on the Seth Rollins injury, because if he did in fact tear his ACL or fuck his knee up and he's going to be out of action for a while, that is going to throw a gigantic monkey wrench into all of the WWE's plans. And I'm really looking forward to the Dean Ambrose-Seth Rollins match at Battleground, and I think it could be one of the matches that helps save the pay-per-view. And if he would have gone down with an injury, that would have fucking sucked. But the way it looks right now, according to the online reports that I'm reading anyway, I'm sure you guys are reading the same shit, it doesn't look like he's injured. It looks to me like he sold the injury really well, to the point where he fooled not only the wrestling world, but he fooled the fucking camera crew too, because they didn't have him in the screenshot for the rest of the main event after he went down. Apparently that was all done by design to keep him out of the finish so he wouldn't be involved, and I think he just sold it really well. So luckily, it looks like Seth Rollins is not injured, although I guess the story could still break that he is, and goddamn, I hope he's not. Can you imagine? That would be the last thing the WWE needs. You already got Daniel Bryan on the shelf, you got Wade Barrett injured, CM Punk's not around, now you got Seth Rollins injured. It just seemed like it was just this incredible string of bad luck with major players not being around right now, and having the Money in the Bank winner go down would not be good for the WWE right now. So thankfully and hopefully it looks like Seth Rollins is fine. He's all good to go for the pay-per-view, and the storyline with him will continue. And during that bullshit main event, incidentally, there's another wrestling rumor going out there, is that the WWE could have possibly retired the World Heavyweight title on Raw. Now, if they did that, I, for one, would be one of the biggest supporters of it, because, that title goes back a long way with me. It would be bittersweet to see it go away, but at the same time, I want to see it go away, because I don't think wrestlers should wear the World Heavyweight title as a fucking necklace. I may defend John Cena, but let me tell you, I throw up when I see him come out there with those 2 titles attached to each other, wearing them around his fucking neck. Show some goddamn respect, but it's not completely his fault, because there's 2 titles. Look at Daniel Bryan. When he held the 2 titles, Daniel Bryan is such a small guy. The size of those 2 belts combined were almost bigger than he was. So he would have to wear one around his waist, which already looked oversized on him to begin with, and then he's got to carry the other one over his shoulder. Behind the 2 belts, you couldn't even see Daniel Bryan. So I know that if the WWE is going to force these guys to walk around with 2 belts, that their options are limited. But still, I'm an old school guy at heart, and I just think it's ridiculous when guys start snapping the belts together and wearing them as fucking accessories. So knock it off, Cena. But during John Cena's entrance, he actually hands the World Heavyweight title to Ric Flair, who made his return to the WWE as well. Isn't it crazy that Sting, Ric Flair, and Hulk Hogan are all involved with WWE right now? That's fucking crazy. But during John Cena's entrance, Ric Flair is actually in the ring first. I can't even remember what Ric Flair said when he was out there, but he basically just made an appearance in front of the Richmond crowd, a crowd that he has a ton of history with. I have been to a million shows, WWE and NWA, in that Richmond Coliseum. That building is jam-packed with history, and as a matter of fact, every year that Raw shows up in Richmond, I always tweet Mick Foley and say, hey Mick, I was there the night that you had the no-holds-barred brawl Falls Count Anywhere match with Terry Funk on Raw in 1998, and I think 2 out of the 3 years he's responded to me. He even favorited my tweet when I sent it to him last night, but I always remember, hey, I was there, I was standing right next to you guys when you were brawling through the crowd. It was fucking awesome. But I've been to so many shows in that building, and it's so rich in history, especially because it's NWA territory. So to have Ric Flair come out there in that building in front of that crowd was awesome. And then when he goes up the ramp and John Cena comes out, he takes, the World Heavyweight title off of himself and hands it to Ric Flair and says, hey, you keep it. And he goes to the ring with just the WWE title. If this was, in fact, a retiring of the World Heavyweight title, I thought it was great because it was subtle and it was appropriate and they just got it out of there. They didn't have to have some big ceremony, didn't have to make a big deal out of it, gave it to the guy that made the belt famous. And that's it. Now, this could have just been a coincidence as well. Ric Flair had the appearance on Raw. John Cena could have just come out to give him a tribute and say, here, hold your belt. Because I don't care what anybody says. That World Heavyweight title, that's Ric Flair's belt. And it could have just been a random tribute to him, and the World Heavyweight title is not retired at all. But I would love if they did. And if they did, this was the perfect time to do it. Do it now. Don't bring it back. One title, one champion, one company. That's all you need. I'm going to miss that title. It's been a part of my life since I was a kid, and that was a long time ago. That title has got a lot of history, but at the same time, it's time to move on. They've unified the titles, so you don't need 2 titles. Now, here's my funny idea regarding Sting. Now, I know what I'm about to say the WWE would never do, but as far as a potential storyline for Sting, if everybody's going to wonder what he's going to do next year, oh, The Undertaker, The Undertaker, The Undertaker. Well, I've really never wanted to see an Undertaker-Sting match when they're both 53 and 48 years old or whatever the hell they are. But I will say this, with The Undertaker losing to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30, it does put a whole nother twist on the Undertaker-Sting match because now it truly is anybody's game. I've said for years that match would be stupid because we know Sting's going to come in and put The Undertaker over. A guy that worked everywhere else and never worked for Vince, and had a long, successful career and became a huge icon in the business without working for a McMahon, is not going to walk into the company in his first match and end, the most legendary streak that the company has. That's not going to happen. If Sting wrestles The Undertaker, he's going to go down. And I still think that if Sting wrestled The Undertaker, he would go down. But at least with The Undertaker, with that one loss under his belt, you'd have to wonder, hey, maybe Sting could win. But what if The Undertaker can't wrestle at WrestleMania 31? Or what if the WWE has different plans for him if he does, in fact, wrestle? And with Paul Heyman not shutting up about Brock Lesnar beating the streak, I have to wonder if that feud is completely over. If The Undertaker comes back, you have to think, he's going to want to avenge the one blemish on his WrestleMania record. And I still think the dimming of the lights or a lightning bolt or even The Undertaker's gong could lead to a Brock Lesnar title loss in the future. If they have the belt on Brock and they need to figure out a way to get it off of him, I think him being distracted by some sort of effect done by The Undertaker, could be a good way to get the belt off of him and have the fans wondering if anything's going to happen between Taker and Brock in the future. But that's a whole nother story for another time. My idea is this. Now, I know the WWE won't do this because they never do good ideas, but Sting is now basically in the WWE, right? I mean, they're saying he's yet to sign a contract, yada, 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 but we know he's going to come in and do something next year. So now that they've already teased the fact that he's going to be there and they don't have to, build up this big, long-awaited debut or try to surprise the fans in any way, we know that Sting is going to be working with the WWE. The video game and the commercial and all of that proves that. So what I think would be cool is, it's just an idea, John Cena is now a 15-time world champion. He's going to be losing that belt, most likely to Brock Lesnar. If not, he'll be losing it shortly after that, which means the next time that he wrestles for the WWE title, it will be for Ric Flair's record. So what I think would be cool is for John Cena, when he drops this belt and he goes on to do whatever else, if he has rematches with Brock Lesnar, if he starts feuding with somebody else, who knows, if he stays away from the world title for several months, going into next year, maybe around the time that John Cena is teased to be another title contender, you see Sting up in the rafters. And the WWE cameras, Michael Cole, JBL, hey, look, is that Sting up there? Kind of redo what they did in WCW in '96, where he just sat up in the rafters for a year straight, because the fans had thought he joined the NWO and he was pissed off, and this was his way of, I guess, dealing with it. And he didn't say a fucking word. Not one interview, not one word was spoken out of Sting's mouth in nearly a year. So do something like that with Sting in the WWE, just on a smaller scale. Let's say as soon as John Cena, it looks like he's going to get another shot at the title, have Sting appear in the rafters every week. And I'm talking on Raw and on SmackDown. Show the WWE trying to get up there to him, trying to get to the bottom of it. Little Renee Young climbing up to the fucking roof, trying to get an interview with him, and he won't speak. Nobody can even get close to him. They don't know what he's doing there. He's just hanging up in the rafters, being very ominous. And let's say this goes on for 2 months, and nobody can figure out. The online world, the wrestling world is buzzing. What the fuck does WWE have planned for Sting? All he's doing is sitting in the rafters, and they are not saying a word. They're not saying a word about it behind the scenes. Creative is very tight-lipped. Sting is not out there during any one particular guy's matches. He's out there during all the guys' matches. So the wrestling world is just a buzz. What the fuck is Sting doing there? And then at whatever pay-per-view, you have John Cena going after the title to tie Ric Flair's record, or maybe they could even wait till he breaks the record. That's when you have Sting come down and interfere in John Cena's match and stop him from winning the world title, and maybe you can go on and have a Sting versus John Cena match at WrestleMania. Now, I think Sting in the rafters could be the protector of Ric Flair's title record. Sting is an NWA guy. He's a WCW guy. He never worked for Vince McMahon. He has never been in the WWE. And you have John Cena on the verge of breaking a record that was held by an NWA wrestler. And I think Sting could be the guy that they could use to stop John Cena from breaking that record. And that could make a good storyline. Then, after all of that goes down, you can have promos. Sting can explain himself. You don't deserve to break Ric Flair's record. You're nothing compared to the wrestlers of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And, just do an angle or a storyline like that, because if The Undertaker can't work with Sting, then who is going to work with Sting? Who on the WWE roster, is that caliber of a star? The only guy I can think of is John Cena. Possibly maybe Triple H. Triple H and Sting might have had a run-in back in the day in WCW, who knows? But I think as far as the size of the wrestler, the size of the star, if you want Sting to work with a big-time level star and it's not going to be The Undertaker, then John Cena might make an appropriate opponent for Sting. And I think if they used Sting in that way to try to stop John Cena from breaking Ric Flair's record, I think that could be a really cool throwback storyline that the fans could really mark out for. Because I know that nobody is looking forward to when John Cena breaks Ric Flair's record, and it will happen. John Cena will not only break the record, he'll shatter the record. So you might as well come to terms with it now that Ric Flair's 16 title reigns and that record is going to be falling very, very soon. And the ironic thing about it is, for all you Cena haters that don't want to see him break that record, you know what that means? You have to hope that John Cena hangs on to the WWE title as long as possible, because after that, it's only going to be a matter of time before John Cena gets another shot and he wins the belt again, ultimately tying Ric Flair and then, one day breaking the record. So having Sting come in as the protector of the precious NWA title record, I think might be a cool way to use him, but hell, I know that's never going to happen. Anyway, let's get on to Raw and Battleground and other business. Raw, I thought, was kind of a bad show. I didn't really think any of these Raws leading up to Battleground was going to be that great, although a couple of weeks ago it was great, when you had the return of Jericho and AJ Lee and Jack Swagger turned babyface and all of that. So, Raw has been okay in the last few weeks, but overall, the show has been sucking. And last night's Raw was really bad. Although a couple of interesting things did happen. One of those was a scenario that I laid out in my commentary a few weeks ago when we started talking about Brock Lesnar and John Cena. I think I talked about this in one of my two, really intense John Cena defending commentaries that I did a couple of weeks ago. It was in one of those. But I mentioned, the perfect way to bring Brock Lesnar in is to have the authorities' plans not go well, and plan A and plan B falls through, and then he needs a plan C or a plan D, and that's when Paul Heyman shows up and says, hey, why don't we have a little conversation? I think we can help each other out. They basically just did this on Raw already. A week before Battleground, Paul Heyman just shows up in the authorities' locker room and says, hey, I hope everything works out for you, but if it doesn't and you need another plan, I'm the guy you should talk to. And he walked away. Now, interestingly enough as well, Paul Heyman did not accompany Cesaro to the ring, and there was this really weird exchange on the announce team when Cesaro was out there, and they started talking about Heyman being fired. And they said, hey, I heard he got fired, and I heard he got fired. Well, I'm sitting right there on Twitter, and Heyman has been tweeting all night. He hadn't said shit about being fired. Nothing was online about it. I didn't hear anybody of you guys talking about it, so I didn't know what to make of it, but I thought it was a really strange rumor just to say, oh, Paul Heyman's been fired, and then the very next segment, he shows up in the authorities' dressing room. So I don't know why the announcers would tease that Paul Heyman has been fired. To me, it made no sense. If you ask me, it was probably just a rib. And Cesaro, correct me if I'm wrong, did he lose? I don't even remember who he lost to. Was it The Miz? Shit, I don't even remember, but I'm pretty sure Cesaro lost. Paul Heyman was not out there with him, and you have to wonder now that Brock Lesnar is obviously going to be coming back, you know, what are they going to do with the Paul Heyman and Cesaro, situation? They're just going to drop it? They got to do more with it than this and then just say, okay, we're going to keep Paul Heyman away from Cesaro right now because he's going to be involved with Brock. Well, Cesaro is also a Paul Heyman guy, so Paul Heyman's just going to leave him high and dry? A lot of people have been mad, too, about the way the WWE is using Cesaro. Since his big Battle Royal victory at WrestleMania, he's been losing a lot of matches. He has not been looking like the future breakout star that we all thought he was going to be, after his big win at WrestleMania. And the fans, I think, are getting frustrated. What the fuck, WWE? This great guy is sitting there. He can be a big contender. Well, what I think they might be doing is maybe just be building him for a face turn. And if that's the case, then all these little losses that he's suffering on Raw aren't going to mean anything once he's a babyface. So maybe next week on Raw, Cesaro can confront Paul Heyman. Hey, why did you not come into the ring with me? I'm your guy, and you left me out there all by myself, and I lost. And, being a Paul Heyman guy is not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe there's a little tension there, and then maybe Brock Lesnar comes out and beats the fucking crap out of Cesaro. Or maybe Brock Lesnar comes out there and the two of them brawl and Cesaro gets a little bit of offense in and everybody says, ooh, this is a guy that could possibly stand up to Brock Lesnar and this could be a great match in the future. And if Brock Lesnar does in fact defeat John Cena for the WWE title, and he's going to wrestle maybe a couple of more pay-per-views this fall or this winter, maybe Cesaro could be an opponent for Brock at a pay-per-view. Why not? If you want Brock to hold the title, you need to have him beat some guys and lay some guys in front of him for him to beat, and Cesaro might be a perfect guy. I don't care that Cesaro would lose if he had a match with Brock Lesnar. First of all, the match would be awesome. Second of all, I think it would really elevate Cesaro's status, especially if he put on a great match and then he fell short to Brock Lesnar in the end. I think that would really elevate his stock and just help him even more as a babyface. So I think maybe in the coming weeks we see a frustrated Cesaro getting mad at Paul Heyman. You're letting me down. Brock Lesnar is now back as well, some sort of a confrontation, and Brock beats the shit out of Cesaro, and Paul Heyman just focuses, his efforts on one guy. Whatever the case is, even though Cesaro's been losing on Raw, even though we've been scratching our heads, what the fuck are you doing with this guy? This guy is ready. He's a breakout star. Well, I think the WWE, they already have their breakout star in Roman Reigns. We can see that. To me, he's going to be the next John Cena. I'm still a big supporter of Roman Reigns. I love the Shield. I think he's going to be good. But I'm worried the WWE is going to overdo it, and they're going to shove him in the fans' face. And whenever that happens, of course, the fans will turn on that guy. So with all this future energy most likely being put on Roman Reigns, you have to wonder where that leaves Cesaro. So if you ask me, there's no rush. Keep him with Paul Heyman for a little while. Or, do whatever with him to where you can, build him for more in the future once they have time to. But whatever happens, early indications right now point to Cesaro doing something Brock Lesnar related, whether it be getting his ass kicked by him or helping Brock Lesnar or aligning himself with Brock Lesnar in a fight. One of those two things will most likely happen with Cesaro. Unless, of course, the WWE does the unthinkable and just completely drops the Paul Heyman-Cesaro alliance without any explanation at all. You better not fucking do that, WWE. As far as what else happened on Raw before we get into Battleground, the only other really great segment, there was really no great segments except for one, and that's Swagger and Rusev segment. I haven't even had a chance to talk about this yet, because I think when I did my last regular weekly commentary, I had forgotten to talk about the Swagger, what appeared to be a face turn of him and Zeb Coulter, and Rusev and Lana and all that had that big confrontation that actually really seemed to get over with the fans. And on Raw, the two of them had a confrontation, or a debate, or a détente, as the WWE was hammering into our fucking ears. Michael Cole, I've never seen him try harder at anything else in life than he was trying to get that fucking word to trend on Twitter. So anyway, they had their détente, but basically it was just a fucking promo with podiums is all it was. And Lana comes up there and cuts her extremely cunty promo, as always, and then I just laugh because Lana and Rusev are so young. They're fresh out of the developmental system, and they're standing in the same ring with Dutch Mantel, a guy that could chew them up and shit them out on the mic if he wanted to. And then I love the Zeb Coulter character because he plays it so well. And it was just a good overall segment. The fans are screaming USA. Jack Swagger's getting all jacked up. They're teasing, some physicality between Rusev and Swagger. Finally, there is. And Swagger actually counters the big kick from Rusev and puts him in the fucking ankle lock. How stupid are you, Rusev? You're going to wrestle barefoot against a guy who uses the ankle lock as his finisher? You might want to wear some fucking shoes in your Battleground match. I actually loved that piece of business. That was awesome. And it's the first time that anyone's gotten anything over on Rusev yet. I have no doubt that Jack Swagger has to lose. And like I said, I'll talk about the predictions in a minute. I have no doubt that Jack Swagger has to lose at Battleground. That has to happen. But I'm starting to think now that this will be a match, maybe like the Big E Rusev, little mini feud that they had. It's going to have to go multiple pay-per-views. I would like to see Rusev win. No problem. He's got to win. But it's got to be because of some sort of bullshit or distraction or whatever, and give Jack Swagger the rematch, at SummerSlam or whatever. I hope they just don't kill Jack Swagger in one match. He comes out there, Battleground, and gets squashed in 5 minutes by Rusev, and Rusev puts him in the camel clutch, and he taps out, and that's it. Swagger has got to make a strong showing for himself because I think it's the first time ever that the fans have ever cared about Jack Swagger. Ever. He's getting a great babyface reaction, going up against Rusev, and I think the WWE would be in their best interest to capitalize on this as best as they can. I know you got to push Rusev, go ahead and push him if you gotta, but at least make the feud and the program he's working with Swagger good and meaningful. His matches he had with Big E previously, although okay and very, very physical, there was no storyline behind them. Nobody gave a shit that these two guys were wrestling or why they were wrestling. At least with Swagger and Zeb and Lana and Rusev, it just makes for a great conflict, and I think this is something that has to exceed Battleground and go on to other things. And I think the WWE should probably change their plan that was probably originally to have Jack Swagger just be another chump lined up in front of Rusev. This thing has actually gotten over, so the WWE needs to do something with it. But to me, that was the highlight of Raw. Easily the best segment they had on the show. Got the best crowd reaction, and it was something that I halfway marked out for. I liked it. So let's move on to Battleground now. You guys know my feelings on Battleground. I am not a fan of this pay-per-view. There's a couple of pay-per-views per year that I wish the WWE would just eliminate. This is one of them. Another one would be the December pay-per-view and the February pay-per-view. I hate those two. But anyway, they're never going to do that. You have to have Battleground, and you have to have a meaningless main event. We're going to start right at the top. You know why? Because this match is pointless, and it's going to be the worst match on the show. I don't give a fuck about this main event, and none of you guys do either. If they are going to bring Brock Lesnar back into the WWE to have a match with John Cena at SummerSlam, we already know the outcome of the main event. John Cena will retain. If they throw a swerve at us, I will be very surprised. I don't see any point on putting the belt on Kane unless he's going to retire soon. It would be nice to give him one little final run with it. I also don't see the point in putting the belt on Randy Orton either, although a Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton WWE title match at SummerSlam I think would be a good match. I think could be a better match than Cena and Brock Lesnar, but it's not the name, it's not the match they want, it's not the main event you want for a big SummerSlam in LA. I would love to see Orton and Brock. It's something we've never seen. I think it's something we need to see. I think we also need to see Orton and Batista, and I'm not ruling Batista out of any of these plans either because he has just taken time off to go promote that stupid movie, right? So technically, we could possibly see Batista show back up in the WWE at any time as well. So maybe Batista can be thrown in there as some sort of a swerve because not only would I like to see Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar in the future, I would also like to see Batista and Brock Lesnar in the future. So all of these plan A's and plan B's and plan C's that the authority is teasing out there, they could really be anybody. Smart money is that it's Brock, but the WWE has to realize that the fans probably realize that. So maybe they want to throw some sort of a swerve in the Battleground main event and maybe do something to throw the fans off a little bit. I don't think now is the time to give the belt to Roman Reigns either. I think you got to build him a little bit more. It seems like they have got their eye on him for WrestleMania 31. I think that's a little little bit far out there. I think the WWE is really hoping, I mean, they want to make him the next superstar. They want to make him the next Superman. He's already got the Superman punch. But if that's the plan for the WWE to make this guy a star, whether the fans want him to or not, right now he's being cheered. But if the boos start too heavily, the WWE is going to have no choice but to change their plans for WrestleMania 31, or at least make Roman Reigns a heel. But then again, they ignore the boos when John Cena gets them, so who's to say the WWE won't ignore the boos when Roman Reigns gets them either? But either way, to me, I think there's one outcome and one outcome only for the Fatal 4-Way main event at Battleground, and that is that John Cena retains. That's my prediction. We've got the Intercontinental title Battle Royal. I guess they've been doing qualifying matches for this in the past few weeks. I don't even know who the fuck's in it, but when I look at the list, I wrote down my 2 odds-on favorites to win. One of them is Cesaro, and the reason I put down Cesaro was just in case they were going to remove Paul Heyman from Cesaro and not do anything cool, like a confrontation or a beatdown by Brock Lesnar on Cesaro or anything like that, and they were just going to quietly remove Paul Heyman from him. Then I think an Intercontinental title victory at this Battle Royal would at least help keep Cesaro's head above water. Now, the Intercontinental title doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, but winning 2 big battle royals in a 6-month span does mean a whole hell of a lot. And if he wasn't going to have Paul Heyman by his side in the future, then I think being the Intercontinental champion and winning 2 major battle royals in the same year could be, you know, a good little storyline to keep him over. My other pick for the Battle Royal is actually Bo Dallas. That's right, good mic work is actually very close to being a full-blown believer. I have to reluctantly admit that I like this guy. I think he's really hilarious. He's really funny. You know, see, Adam Rose and Bo Dallas came in at the same time, and Adam Rose makes me puke. I said right from the start, you know, that this is stupid. Nobody's ever going to like this fucking nonsense. And a lot of people were defending Adam Rose to me. Oh, give it a chance. Good mic work. It's just supposed to be entertainment. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. Yes, I know that, but the character drives me nuts. And now that Santino Marella has retired, and by the way, good luck to everything you do, Santino. Thank you for all your ridiculous, stupid moments on Raw. I will never forget laughing, crying, and puking at the same time every time you were out there. It's always sad to see a career end, even when you're in a meaningless role like Santino, but I would like to see Santino hang around. He doesn't need to be in the ring. Fuck that stupid Cobra gimmick. If you're looking for a wrestler to fill the comedy role, then Adam Rose is your guy. In the meantime, Santino can take Vicky's spot. Vicky Guerrero recently left. They're not even using Brad Maddox anymore because I guess he's stuck in a fucking cave somewhere. So you have some roles to fill as far as your backstage little goofy funny segments go, and I think Santino could hang around in the WWE and just do other things. I'd be totally fine with that. I find Santino much more entertaining, behind the scenes than I do in the ring. But still, I wish him a lot of luck. And what was I talking about? I was talking about Bo Dallas, right? Yes, I am becoming a Bo Dallas fan. I think he's funny. It's not the greatest. There's a couple of things that the WWE has done with him that I haven't liked as much as others. I loved it when he wrestled Titus O'Neil. I'm still laughing about that. I love it when he beats a guy and then he goes and kneels down next to him and goes, "Hey, buddy." You know, to me, I just fucking laugh every time. And when Titus slapped the mic out of his hand a couple weeks ago and he's like, "Look at me, Mr. Butterfingers," I'm still chuckling about that. So to have Bo Dallas win this Battle Royal, I think could make for a very, very entertaining celebration at the end. I mean, because look at the way Bo Dallas runs and prances around after he beats the Big Khali by countout. Imagine how he'll act if he wins a title belt by beating 20 other guys. So I think Bo Dallas, you know, as far as the list of competitors in that Battle Royal, I guess just to me makes the most sense. Yes, I'd love to see it go on a lot of guys. I'd love to see it go on Ziggler or, you know, any number of guys, you know, that are in that Battle Royal. I think even The Miz is in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they put the belt on The Miz either. And really, at the end of the day, honestly, I don't even give a shit who wins this Battle Royal, but I still have to give you a clear-cut prediction, so I'm going to put my money on Bo Dallas. And Bad News Barrett, incidentally, is going to be at Battleground, they have announced. He is going to present the Intercontinental title to the winner of this match. So that throws a whole nother storyline twist into this. What's Bad News Barrett going to do? And if you think about it, this doesn't necessarily have to kill Bad News Barrett's momentum, because think about when he came in. How long did he go before he wrestled a match? You know, under this new gimmick of Bad News Barrett. He was coming in, cutting all those promos on the podium, the big rising podium on Raw and pay-per-views. He was doing that for what seemed to be months before he actually got in the ring. So who's to say they can't just bring back that idea? You know, if Bad News Barrett is going to be unable to wrestle due to an injury, you can still use him on the show in that way. I would love it if they would bring back the Bad News Barrett segments and he would interrupt people. So if Bad News Barrett is hurt, I mean, as long as he's able to use his arm to bang the gavel, you know, that's all he fucking needs. And then he could just cut a great great promo, every week on Raw, for a couple of months until he heals. So if you ask me, this doesn't have to be the end of Bad News Barrett. They can still use him on TV because they were doing it before, when he wasn't wrestling and he was just building up the new gimmick. And if my prediction of Bo Dallas winning does come true, it could be a good way to maybe get Barrett over as a babyface if he wasn't one already. Bo Dallas in his over-the-top elaborate victory celebration could tell Bad News Barrett, hey, don't worry, buddy, you just need to Bo leave and you'll get through your injury, pissing off Wade Barrett. But who knows what's going to happen. Like I said, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. Chris Jericho and Bray Wyatt are going to have a match. Bray Wyatt got injured, I think, at the Madison Square Garden show. He had a big black eye on Monday Night Raw. I think he got busted in the face or had some stitches or something like that. So hopefully he'll be good to go for Battleground. And I think this feud with Jericho is a way to get Bray Wyatt over. I think Jericho's coming in, to put over, new guys. But I think this might be one that Jericho wins. Just maybe, 2 reasons why I say that. First of all, these guys have to wrestle again and possibly even again. So if they're going to have upwards to 3 matches, Jericho is not going to put him over in every single one. So I think you give Jericho the first victory, and then you have Bray Wyatt win the next 2. And I think this would be a good pay-per-view to give Jericho the victory because Jericho just came back. Fans aren't going to scream that they've buried Bray Wyatt because it's Jericho and everybody likes Jericho. And these guys are going to have more matches together, which means Bray Wyatt has plenty of time to end the feud on the right note. And I think the Usos might finally drop the titles to the Wyatts. So if the Wyatts are already going to have a pretty successful pay-per-view and they're going to win the tag team titles, this could be a good time for Bray Wyatt to actually lose a match because, it doesn't completely destroy the Wyatts all in one night. So Chris Jericho can just play a little game, play some mind tricks or maybe reverse the role on fucking Bray Wyatt and do something a little tricky, to win the match against Bray Wyatt, and then they can have a rematch at SummerSlam, a gimmick match, I'm sure. And then Jericho can put him over at SummerSlam, and then if they have to wrestle one more time after that on Raw or whatever, then, Jericho can put him over one more time. But I think for Battleground purposes, as crazy as it sounds, I'm picking Chris Jericho to win this match because I want him to win at least one, and to me, this particular one makes the most sense. And since I just talked about the Usos against Harper and Rowan, I am predicting the Wyatts to win the tag team titles from the Usos. A couple of reasons why, because they've been teasing it. Generally, with a faction like this that is strong, much like the Shield, they always give a couple of those guys the belts. 2 guys in the Shield held the belts, 2 guys in Evolution held the belts, 2 guys in the NWO held the belts, DX, everybody held the fucking belts. So Rowan and Harper should be no different, and it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. Now, they wouldn't put this stipulation in there just to have the Usos retain the titles again, so I actually think this might be where the Usos drop the belts. And I'm predicting Luke Harper and Eric Rowan to win the WWE Tag Team titles at Battleground. That's my prediction. Really, the only match on the pay-per-view that I'm excited to see is Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, provided that Seth Rollins is actually not injured, and he's completely fine going into his match with Ambrose at Battleground, this could be the show stealer. The only thing I'm worried about is that they're not doing a gimmick match, I don't think. The heat is so big in this match. Ambrose is literally obsessed with getting his hands on Rollins. He wants to tear him limb from limb, completely rip him apart and kill him. You can't have a straight up match with rules with these guys because it's going to be a mess. So I'm worried that this is going to be some sort of a fucking disqualification or something like that. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be some sort of a brawl that will also lead to a gimmick match at SummerSlam. I would imagine at SummerSlam they're going to do a cage or they're going to do a Falls Count Anywhere or no holds barred or something between Ambrose and Rollins. Possibly even a ladder match. Now, I've mentioned that I don't like the idea of the briefcase being defended. I think once you win the briefcase, then that's it. But if they want a feud for the briefcase, they could hang the briefcase over the ring and just have a one-on-one ladder match at SummerSlam, and I think that would be really good. But to me, the feud seems a little more intense than that, than just a ladder match. I don't think Dean Ambrose gives a shit about Seth Rollins' briefcase. I think Dean Ambrose just wants to kill Seth Rollins. So that's where you have to do the no holds barred or cage match or whatever. But as far as who wins the initial match at Battleground, I'm going to go with Seth Rollins. Only because it's a straight one-on-one match with rules. I think they're going to do some sort of an angle where Dean Ambrose lets his emotions get the better of him, Or possibly even Kane makes an appearance to help out Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is gonna have some sort of help to get some sort of a bullshit victory over Dean Ambrose, only pissing off this nutcase even more. And Ambrose might just come out hell-bent on Raw to get his hand. He might be even 10 times madder than he already is, and Ambrose already looks like he's insane. And that guy's awesome, let me tell you. Dean Ambrose is the man. Even on Raw, when he was getting the shit kicked out of him by 3 other guys, he was still awesome. He's fucking talking trash to him while he was getting his ass kicked. It was awesome. I love the Dean Ambrose character. Kind of a Brian Pillman, Terry Funk love child type of thing. He's just doing a great job. But Seth Rollins seems to be on a roll. He's got the authority behind him, and Ambrose seems like he could really be the type of guy to let his emotions get the better of him, which is why I'm going to pick Seth Rollins to somehow win this match at Battleground. It might even be by disqualification. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dean Ambrose just loses it and just waffles fucking Seth upside the head with the fucking ring bell or steel chair and causes a disqualification, and, you know, the brawl and the story just continues. But either way, I would think Rollins will probably get his hand raised in this, although they could do the same thing with Dean. Maybe Dean's going so nuts that Rollins just retreats and gets counted out on purpose or something like that. That could be a good way to, you know, further the storyline as well. But I can only pick one, so I'm going to pick Seth Rollins. He's on a roll. The only other match I have written down is AJ Lee versus Paige. Now, these two hot little chicks have done a really cute role reversal on TV. Paige is now the heel and AJ is now the face, or at least they're building to that, and I would expect that after Battleground it will remain that way. I really loved it on Raw when, you know, because they're trying to be, you know, like friendly to each other. Paige is trying to make everybody believe that, you know, she really respects AJ. She kept calling her frenemy, which was so annoying. She was like, she's my frenemy, she's my frenemy. Yes, Paige, we get it. We've all heard the term frenemy. It's about 15 years old. Paige is sitting there saying it like she was the one that fucking made it up or something. Okay, we get it. You're frenemies. You know what? All women are frenemies. Did you see the way AJ was talking to Paige after the match? The way she sat on the announce table and they're like, hi, how are you? You look so good and that, you know. That's the way all women are. Have you guys not ever seen women talk to each other? They are completely fucking two-faced pieces of shit. Every time a woman interacts with another woman, the only thing she's doing in her head is criticizing her. And as far as who wins, hey, you gotta keep that belt on AJ. I love Paige. You know, I think she's awesome since she's come in. I quickly fell in love with her, but I've always loved AJ. And the Divas division to me is such garbage. You know, AJ is one of the few people that I actually like and actually I think is good in her role and is good at her job. You know, I see a complete stumbling, bumbling, you know, walking, useless pile of shit out there like Eva Marie, who has no business even being on TV, doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. She's awful. I don't care how hot she is. She fucking sucks. Probably my least favorite diva since Sable, you know, is who Eva Marie is. I fucking hate her and her stupid red hair. So being able to watch a talented diva like AJ, to me, is much better and much more enjoyable, and I hope that AJ Lee retains her title at Battleground, and I am predicting her too. And it does look like the pre-show is between the two Funkadorums or whatever, and I fucking don't care. I don't think I like either one of those two girls, and I don't give a shit who wins. Fuck them both. So that is your Battleground card. It'll be interesting to see how my predictions stand up to the actual pay-per-view. I will be checking it out this Sunday, live tweeting and all of that, and depending on what happens on the show, like always, if it's a crazy show chock full of, you know, big time storylines breaking and swerves and all of that, I'll come up right after Battleground and do a reaction video. Otherwise, I will most likely wait till after Raw, because next week on Raw we could be seeing Brock Lesnar. Triple H's Plan B or Plan C could be coming to light by next week, because after Battleground, you got to build for SummerSlam. So basically, starting next week, they have to start putting their card in place and getting their plans in place for the big show. So next Monday Night Raw could be very, very telling. So if the pay-per-view is so-so, I will be waiting till after Raw, until after we hopefully see Brock Lesnar to come up and make a commentary on what we're looking at going towards SummerSlam 2014. And before I get out of here, just one more little piece of news. I know you see the picture up there in the corner, but apparently the WWE did sign Kenta. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the same Kenta that uses the GTS as his finisher, right? He's a big international star. I think he's worked some in Ring of Honor. A lot of independent wrestling fans are fully aware of this guy and like him a lot. I have seen a couple of his matches, and he's very good, very athletic, very talented. It'll be interesting to see what the WWE does with him. I mean, Sin Cara was very talented when he came in, and look what they did with him. So hopefully, if Kenta comes in, they will not slap some sort of a stupid character gimmick on him, and they will allow him to be somewhat of the wrestler. I know they changed Daniel Bryan's name from Bryan Danielson, so if they have to change Kenta's name up a little bit, I'm okay with it, as long as they make him a serious wrestler and not some bullshit. I don't want to see Kenta coming out there with fucking El Torito, you know what I mean? And this guy's obviously capable in the ring, so I don't want to see him hanging around NXT for 2 fucking years either. Bring this guy in, figure out what you want to do with him, and get him up to the main roster as soon as possible. I think he could add a lot. And for fuck's sake, get Hogan away from him before he ruins him. Anyways, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to get out of here now. I've been talking long enough. You guys leave me all of your Battleground thoughts, your Brock Lesnar thoughts, your Sting thoughts, any of that stuff below. Keep an eye out on the channel in the next week, probably right after my post-Battleground commentary. I will be releasing a big, nice SummerSlam commentary that I've been working on that I thought would just be a nice video to have up during SummerSlam, talking about and reminiscing all of the past 26 shows that the WWE has had. This coming up SummerSlam is going to be number 27. That's amazing. So I thought it would be fun to come up and talk a little bit about the legacy of SummerSlam, and it's going to be a fun commentary. Should be up in about a week or so. So like I said, I will be tweeting live during Battleground, so feel free to join me if you'd like, and I will catch you guys most likely after Raw next week. Peace.